Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Can you hear me? Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Uh, so we see. Can you see my screen? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh, oh, okay. So that is the page. Okay. So I will be teaching you DC to DC converters. You have done my class, machines class already. You know me. So and I also know your batch. So you only thing I want to tell you that if I am speaking too fast or if I am covering the topics too fast, please stop me and ask questions. Whatever doubts you have, um, that is um, that is welcome, very much welcome. Uh, so I will be teaching you, as you know, that I will be teaching you DC to DC converters. More specifically, I will be teaching you switched mode DC to DC converters. In this particular case, you already have learned what is semiconductor switch. It is a semiconductor. This switch is a semiconductor switch. You already have got an idea about that. What is a semiconductor switch? It has two states only. Two states: turned on and turned off. There is no state where uh, turned on as a switch. I must be using words very carefully. Turned on as a switch. This it is not just on. It is not just on. A semiconductor switch may be on. On implies that current is flowing through it. You already know. On means what? The current is flowing through it. Now, a semiconductor switch may be on but not on as a switch. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean by that is that you have seen the semiconductor characteristics, switch characteristics. This time I am talking about switch that are controllable switch. Controllable switch means a control signal can be used to turn on and turn on or turn off a switch. That means we can we have a control over its state, whether it is in the conduction state that we call as on state, or it is in the off state. So we have a control over that, and what I am trying to make a distinction here is that it may be on but not on a switch. So what is on as a switch? So on as a switch is, suppose this is the VD, D suffix D here I am meaning that is here in this case, in this particular case I am D suffix V suffix D, I am meaning that D is the device. So voltage across the device and let us call ID is the current through the device. Current through the device. So what I imply that by when on as a switch, on as a switch is that its voltage drop Vd is equal to 0. That is what I mean on as a switch. And as an ideal switch, I also mean that ideal. This is a this is our engineering approach. Engineers first try to make things pretty simple, try to see things from the ideal perspective, and then bring non-ideality. In real life, nothing is so ideal, but to get some insight and clarity, we bring in this sort of concepts. So ID could be plus infinity or minus infinity. What does it mean, plus infinity and minus? Infinity is the amount of current, obviously you understand that, and plus is implying current may be flowing conventionally this direction is plus and this direction may be considered as minus. So if the device has terminal two terminal A and B, then the current when it flows from direction from A to B, we call it plus, and when the current flows from B to A through the device, we call it we may call it minus. So we may call it minus. So what is it implying? Why I am giving what is the meaning of this on as a switch is this, that power dissipated inside the device, power dissipated not outside, power is there outside, but when the when it is conducting, current is flowing through the device as a I can think the device now as a 3-terminal device. So current is flowing from A to B and it is being controlled by a terminal C by doing something to the terminal C. Let us not need not be too clear at this point. But you have an idea. It may be a gate voltage. Gate may be considered as the third terminal. In the case of MOSFET, drain may be considered as terminal A. Source may be considered as terminal B and gate may be considered as terminal C. So terminal C is the control terminal. So through the control terminal, we have given adequate voltage between gate and source and the device has turned on. And a MOSFET being a majority carrier device, it can take current either from drain to source or from source to drain. It depends upon external circuit. MOSFET has no way of regulating it. MOSFET is just a channel. It has opened the channel and let the electrons flow in whichever direction the circuit dictates. So that is the essence of it, and therefore the power lost in the device during conduction is Vd into Id is equal to 0. So it is conducting, but there is no power loss inside the device. That is what is defining at a switch as a switch. It might have, there is from the MOSFET characteristics, I am not drawing it now, but from the MOSFET characteristics already drawn in the class, that it may operate in such a way that ID is there, finite amount of ID is there, and finite amount of Vd is also there across the device. In fact, that is called a linear zone, and you have. Hello, any question is coming? Is there any question? Somebody turned on a mic. Okay, if that is not there, then I continue that in a transistor, you have seen a bipolar junction transistor or a MOSFET. You have seen that it is possible to operate in such a way that there is finite Vd and a finite Id. Okay, and therefore the power loss within the device is present, is there. So we are not operating in anywhere, anytime in this course, in the way the power electronics is configured or conceptualized, we are not willing to operate it in that mode. Okay, reason is obvious. Reason is obvious is because the power, we do not want the power to be lost within the device, right? We'll come to that. The other is that obvious thing is the off as a switch, if I want to go by that, off as a switch, then we'll see that Vd is equal to plus minus infinity. It is an ideal switch. Ideal switch. So it should be able to block both positive and negative in voltage of infinite magnitude. No device will be like that. But to give the idea, we are just defining it like that as an ideal switch. We'll see the practical switches have in what way they behave. We somewhat you also know, but ID is equal to 0 because this is off as a switch. Again, you see that PD is equal to VD into ID is equal to 0. So in the switched mode power conversion is based on this essential concept. It is essential concept that is that we will be using semiconductor switches in this manner as a switch. That means in a power electronic converter, or in this more specific case in switch mode DC to DC power electronic converter, the switch will undergo on state, undergo actually switch will stay either in on state or in the off state. But you also understand that practically it is not possible to have two states without having a transition in between. So for some time it will be in on state, sometime it will be in off state, but there is a transition between on state and off state. So what we have to assume in this time? Again, we are assuming that as an ideal switch, this transition is happening in no time, right? It is happening in a discontinuous manner. Whenever we exercise control through the gate of the MOSFET and turn a switch off from on to off, what will happen is in no time it will go from on state to off state and vice versa. This is what is an assumption of an ideal switch, that it takes no time to transition from on state to off state. So assumption of an ideal switch is that it takes no time to transition from on state to off state and vice versa. Similarly from on state to. However, even if it takes a certain finite time, we would like to operate these switches in such a way that transition happens in such a way that all along the transition there is no power loss in the device. That means when this is transitioning from on state to off state or off state to on state, it is going through a trajectory, such a trajectory that there is no instantaneous power loss. This power loss that I am defining is instantaneous power loss. At every instant, the power loss inside the device, PD, which is a simple multiplication of VD into ID, though I have written in a capital letter normally means average, but I just mean that these are instantaneous quantities. The instantaneous quantities of instantaneous value of voltage into current product wise is 0. So how can it happen? You can have an idea. How can it happen? Can you have an idea? Let's see how it can happen. Let's see that there is a device. I'm taking a little simpler characteristic, not to complicate. This is, let us say, ID, D, and this is, let us say, VD. So as per our definition, let us say it is in the on state at certain finite on state means its current will be high, some high point here, let us say, and the voltage is 0. This is a 0. So this is the on point of the switch. Let us call this as the on state of the switch, and let us say when it is off, it has to come to this point, and this point that you can see that it is blocking the voltage and the current is 0, blocking certain voltage and the current is 0. So we can define it as the indicate, not define here. We just indicate that this would be the off state of the switch. So I can understand that on state there is no power loss, and I can understand that there is off state there is also no power loss. But how can it? But as the operation goes, we have to move from on state to off state. And what would happen during the transition? So the point is that the transition would be so cleverly done, it will not go this way. Transition will not go, let us say, this way. So this way transition will not be done. That is not allowed. Why? Because during transition you see that there are finite, this is the voltage drop and this is the current drop. So power loss is happening. So this will not this will not allow. What will allow is a transition along the axis. That means the transition that is allowed is this transition. First you reduce the current and then you increase the voltage. So during transition it will move along this trajectory, has to move along this trajectory and has to go along this trajectory, then finally reach at this point. So if it is transitioning along this trajectory, then there is again no power loss. Similarly, when it has to move from off state to on state, it will just first reduce the voltage and then increase the current. So this sort of transition is, I'm not claiming that all the time it will be happening, but I'm just claiming, I'm just trying to indicate that these are desirable things. In power electronics, we first know what is desirable. These are desirable things. So any circuit which achieves this is a good power electronic circuit, because power electronics, most important aspect of power electronic conversion is that it should be efficient. There the maximum emphasis has been given that it has to be efficient. So efficiency means that's why we need to operate any semiconductor device as a switch. We cannot operate it in the any other mode where in the on state there is both voltage drop along with passing of the current, along with the conduction of current, right? So I hope I have said what is a switched mode power conversion. Then coming to the point of efficiency, and coming to that point, let me take another page. So coming to the point of this thing, power converters, desirable things. So it has to have efficiency, desirable features, desirable features of a power converter. Efficiency, very efficiency equal to 1, right? Second is the size of the power converter. That is also very important in power electronic conversions. So desirable features of power conversion. Okay, desirable features of power conversion is size. So efficiency I have just explained, and the efficiency, from the efficiency point of view, we understand that it has to use switch, semiconductor as switch, and it cannot use any passive. This is an active component. You already know that this is called active component. But what about the passive components? The passive component is wise, you cannot use any resistance. Resistance is banned, so only inductor and capacitor. These storage elements are acceptable components of power conversion. So here is acceptable components of power conversion. So semiconductors as switch and inductors and capacitors. You already know the inductors and capacitors only store it, they don't dissipate it, they are not dissipative elements. So therefore the resistance is banned. You can never say, sir, I want to convert 10 volt to 5 volt, I will just do a resistive division, R1 R2 division. You cannot, that is not acceptable. Okay, only your valid elements, the legitimate elements of a power converter is this. And objective would be to increase, to have efficiency as close to 1 as possible, and the size as minimum as possible. So now, is there any comments? Please feel free. Anybody wants to comment anything? It's okay. Who said AP means? Who is AP? Just now talked. Hello, Ayush. Yes, Ayush. Anything you want to comment on?
No, sir.
It's okay. Achha. So I may be talking, but you please stop me if I'm just going a little extra. So now tell me, let us get into discussion. How do we reduce size? Can you tell me how do you reduce size of a first of all, you understand the objective is to let me still write it. I hope I have implicitly said the objective is to so since it's a DC to DC conversion, objective is to convert a DC voltage. Objective is convert a given DC voltage, okay, that is called source voltage, normally indicated by VG, this indication, to another value of DC voltage, right? So that I call it, since it is required by the load, which is required by the load, I mean load side voltage. Okay, load means where the actual power dissipation will happen. Source means source is providing the power. Power converter is in between, and the power is consumed by the load. Load is a consumer of power. So that voltage, load side voltage, is V0. This happens. Consumer, as you know, any consumer will demand certain voltage. So, however, the source voltage is not all the time matching the voltage demanded by the load. You have seen that your mobile phone requires certain voltage. You do not have that voltage readily available to you. So what you have to do is you have to convert it. Your PC, the microprocessor, requires a voltage of 1.2 volts DC. The actual microprocessor requires 1.2 volt DC. The Pentium processor requires 1.2, even nowadays 0.7 volt DC. So who is giving you 0.7? But current is not less. Pentium processor is drawing about 120 ampere currents. The latest versions of Pentium processors are drawing that kind of currents. So voltage levels can be very, very different. Sometimes 1.2, sometimes 2.5, sometimes 5. Different ICs have different standards. Some ICs are operating at 3.3 volt DC, but all are DC. This electronic circuit is totally based on DC. So, but they have different levels of voltages. There are reasons for that. Why Pentium processor is continuously reducing the voltage level? It started from maybe 3.3 volt and continuously reducing, and now it is 0.7 volt, continuously reducing the voltage as it is becoming faster and faster, right? So there will be from as a designer, you are a designer of power converters. Your power converter designers, they will ask for that kind of voltages which you don't have at the in the beginning. In the beginning, what DC voltage you may have? In the beginning, you may have, if you are operating from a battery, you may have a 12 volt that you may have. If you are operating from a solar PV cell, you may have a 25 volt. So by solar PV module, you may have a 25 to 30 volts, and also that voltage may vary. Input voltage may vary, but output voltage cannot vary. This has to be regulated. That is what I am saying is regulated. Load voltage normally it has to be regulated. Regulated, irrespective of the variation. VG may vary. This may vary. And another thing may vary in the system. So therefore, the system looks like this. A source, DC source, VG, and a load voltage. This is where power consumption is happening, and this is our converter, DC to DC converter. So load voltage is V0. So what may happen is this value of VG, because you know, if it is driven from a solar panel, because of irradiation change, that will change. The voltage may change, VG voltage may change, and the load voltage is, even then when it is changing, it has to be kept constant. That's why we need this control variable. That's why we need some kind of control variable by which we can adjust the voltage, irrespective of the variation of the. We can not adjust in that sense. We can maintain the voltage at the load end, irrespective of the variation of the source voltage. Another aspect of that may vary is the load current. That may vary. Load current, because you have seen your computer sometimes goes into sleep mode. That means it has shed some load. It has saved some functions, software function, processing function. That means probably the controller, microcontroller is now drawing less current. Not probably, definitely. It might even have drawn, it might be drawing 1/10 of what its full load current is. Suppose full load current is 120 ampere, it might be drawing maybe even less than 10%, maybe 5%. 10% will be 12 ampere, 5% will be 6 ampere. So you see, there is a huge change in load. And you know that how load current change may affect the voltage. Do you have any common sensical answer to that? How load current can change the output voltage? Think about a source. Suppose you have a source, you have a battery, and battery terminal voltage is something. Let us say it's a 12 volt battery, and the load current is 5 ampere. Now load current has changed to 1 ampere. Will the terminal voltage change?
It will fall.
5 ampere to 1 ampere, it will fall or increase. 5 ampere to 1 ampere, if the load current is, that the terminal voltage will increase, because there is a Thevenin resistance inside, source resistance, right? Any source has a kind of internal resistance, right? You can take a model of a source, is that this is the thing. This is what you are seeing. This is the R internal. This is the V source. This is the R internal, and this is where you are connecting load, R load, and this may vary. So if this varies, whatever voltage you are essentially seeing is this voltage, V out. This is the output voltage you are essentially seeing. So output voltage will also tend to vary as the load varies, because of the drop in the internal resistance is going to change. Therefore, the output voltage is likely to vary. So here also it is like that in a in our specific case of a DC to DC converter, which is being driven from the source, let us say a source of 48 volt, and that it has to produce a power supply, give supply voltage of 1.2 volt to a microprocessor or microcontroller, and this microcontroller is the load in the microcontroller is changing. Essentially, load in the microcontroller is changing means microcontroller is doing less processing. So less processing means it requires less internal transistors to be turned on and off. So less part of the internal MOSFET circuit is activated. So therefore, it is drawing less current, right? And therefore, corresponding to that, what is likely to happen, that 1.2 volt may jump to 1.4 volt, because the drop in the internal resistance has now gone, is reduced now. So, but that is not allowed, because microprocessor or microcontroller has a strict regulation. This regulation is that it should be under all condition within plus minus 5% of the voltage. Under plus minus 5%, it may be nowadays even reducing to plus minus 3%. So let us take plus minus 5%. So for a microprocessor of 1.2 volt, plus minus 5% is how much? Only 60 millivolts. So it is only allowed to vary by 60 millivolts under all conditions, even when the load is changing, even when the input voltage is changing, even when they are changing simultaneously. So even when the load is dynamically changing. Okay, so under all situations, it is supposed to be regulating the output voltage, right? So that is the scenario. We have to work, the designer has to work under such stiff situation, a real life situation, and it has to work pretty fast, because the microprocessor voltage, even for momentarily, it goes beyond that level, that limit of 5% plus minus 5%, it will fail. It is not based on average that the voltage has to be maintained. This voltage, let us say that you look at the voltage, microprocessor voltage, it is, as a function of time, is remaining like this, and then the load change has happened, and therefore it has gone spike and then continued. This spike, if it is greater than 60 millivolt, the microprocessor will fail. The microprocessor will fail. So it is a very challenging, from the designer perspective, is very challenging, because it has to not only look into the steady state aspect, but also look into this kind of load change and dynamic aspect. This is called dynamic, because load is changing without telling you. Suddenly microprocessor was drawing 12 ampere. It is 12 ampere here. At this moment, it has started drawing, let us say, 1 ampere. It has gone into, or 1.2 ampere or 1.2 ampere. So sudden load changes happen, because nobody is telling the processor, the power supply, that, well, I am changing the load, you do something, you adjust the duty ratio. No. So during this small time, the control has to be applied on the power converter. There is a control thing. We'll define it. There is a control thing that is called duty ratio. I will define it a little later. So duty ratio, designated normally by D. So by adjustment of this control variable, you need to adjust this. By the way, I was telling you that microprocessor voltage is continuously reducing with further development. As the development in the microprocessor is happening, the voltage level of the microprocessor is changing and reducing, continuously reducing. Can you tell me why? Can you give me a kind of your thought in that why the voltage, we prefer to reduce the voltage of a microprocessor as we speed it up, as the operating clock frequency is increasing? Can you have a guess?
Is the switching loss related to that?
It is somewhat related to switching loss, correct. Because inside that also, when we say the clock frequency is that, the internal circuit is also transitioning at that rate. Some part of the circuit at least transitioning at that rate. Microprocessor clocks are now in gigahertz and things like that. Earlier it might have been in megahertz. So megahertz to gigahertz, when the switching is happening, what is happening is that, you know, every MOSFET has an output capacitance, half CD square. Do you know that VDS, there is a CDS, C drain to source capacitance is there across the MOSFET? Do you know that? Do you know that in a MOSFET there is an output capacitance, CDS? This is called drain to source capacitance. So what is happening is, every time the MOSFET is switching on and off, this capacitor, when it is turned on, when it is turned off, this capacitor is charged to the level of the supply voltage. When it is turned on, that capacitor is discharging within the MOSFET. So there is a loss. So this loss, half CDS into VDS square into frequency. So this is energy into frequency. That much amount of loss will be happening. So as the frequency is going up, the loss tends to go up. So what has to be happened? What we have to do is, we have to reduce the drain to source voltage, which means the supply voltage has to reduce. Do you get it, what I am saying? So you will see any circuit, any switching circuit, which is increasing in the switching frequency. Why the frequency is increasing? Because you need more processing to be done in a small time. You need your job to be done faster than earlier. So therefore, what you are doing, you have to do it. Processing means it is a clocked processing. So the clock frequency of the microprocessor has to increase, because it's a digital system. It is based on clock. The clocks are indicating the functions. That this time this function, then this time that, they are dividing the entire thing into code into smaller and smaller functions, operations, multiplication, addition, subtraction, all sorts of functions they will be dividing, and those things are happen with respect to the clock. So as the speed has, if the speed of the processing has to increase, so has to increase the speed of the clock. So as the speed of the clock increases, what happens? Actually, the internal switches, the processor has internal switches. They have to undergo on-off transitions, and every on-off transitions, there is a switching loss. I'm not talking about conduction loss. I'm not talking when it is on. That may be very negligible. That doesn't matter much. What matters is switching loss, because of the transition, the device capacitance, the device output capacitance has to discharge, right? So it discharges, and the loss continues to increase with the speed of the processor, with the clock frequency. This F is nothing but the clock frequency of the processor. So the only way out is to reduce the voltage. Now you imagine how difficult it is to maintain a 0.7 volt at the output when the input supply is 48 volt. How much, and you just imagine, I cannot, even after so many years, I get astounded by this thing, the difficulty of the controlling that 48 volt variable has to be converted into 0.7 volt fixed, right, with good efficiency, with very high efficiency near to 1, right, and it has to be regulated in such a way that the variation is within plus minus 35 millivolt, that is 5%, plus minus 35 millivolt. So this sort of designs are extremely challenging, very, very difficult and challenging design. The design of the power supply for Pentium processor is extremely difficult, and various kinds of ways this approach is taken, and we'll probably get a feel of it, and that to get 0.7 volt to 48 volt, your duty ratio becomes extremely small. So that has related other problems and things like that. We'll come to that. The point is that at this point I have tried to tell you the application in general terms, that it is converting one DC voltage, that is the source voltage, to a load voltage. The load voltage is V0. It has to regulate the load voltage irrespective of the variation in the source voltage and variation in the load current. Load current is also varying. That is the scenario, and it does so by using a control variable, and that control variable is related control variable D is defined as the on time of the switch divided by the period of the switching period, divided by the period of the, I will not write that, I will write divided by the switching period, switching period. Obviously you have understood that as obviously you have understood that as we are operating, as we have two operating states, on and off, and there will be therefore this has to be repetitive in nature. So that's why the concept of frequency is coming here. Why it has to be repetitive in nature? Because we need in order to control, as we have just defined, in order to control we need a variable, and that variable would be the duty ratio variable. This is the on time of the switch. And this is the period. And this repeats. This is the period. Now period we define it as, use the variable Ts, and we choose one ratio variable here, that is the duty ratio D, duty ratio, which is nothing but, as I said, on time by this thing. So the on time, so this is equal to on time, that means let us say T on, this time I define as T on, period is defined as Ts, so T on by Ts, that is what is known as the duty ratio. And we will be using this aspect, a ratio aspect, right? It will be using a ratio aspect to control the output voltage irrespective of the any variation in the input voltage or in the load current. Now you may definitely ask me, sir, why I have to use a periodic thing instead of you just need a control variable, right? You may ask, you may also vary by varying the frequency. I mean, how do I say control variable as duty ratio? If I am using control variable as the duty ratio, you will see what I will do is actually vary this ratio. That means I will change the on time, I will keep the period same. I will vary the on time and pick the period same. So that is what is meant by the duty ratio variation. Duty ratio variation. It could as well have been this way. Frequency variation. That means I may keep T on constant, but I may vary Ts. I may vary Ts. So that also would have given me a control like T1 constant, and this is called frequency variation. Frequency variation. That also gives control over, gives control over the control of the output voltage. Output voltage. Output. That also gives control of the output voltage. So duty ratio control gives control of the output voltage. Okay. What it essentially means, vary T1. T1 can go from, as I showed, that it can be adjusted as per the requirement. As per the requirement, when the input voltage has increased, I may have to reduce the T1. But intention is to always keep Ts constant. Here in the duty ratio control, Ts is kept constant. It is not varied. Why? Why do we prefer this? We'll show you why do we prefer. Remember it, we prefer it, and I'm just giving a brief statement that we prefer it because of the design. It enables us to design the magnetic circuit and the capacitive circuit better. The passive components of the conversion. There is some passive components of the component. There are some passive components of the conversion. That is the selection of the inductor and capacitor. That selection becomes better, easier. So the to have convenience in the selection of the passive components of power converter. Okay, so this has to have convenience in the selection of the power components, and as well in the design of them. That means, in simple words, I can, with a duty ratio control, I can choose an inductor, a fixed value of an inductor. Otherwise, if there is a frequency variation, we'll see that it requires a variation in the value of the inductor to maintain some quantity constant, that is the current ripple or etc. to constant. We can choose a fixed value of inductor and a fixed value of capacitor to keep the voltage ripple within the range. We can choose a fixed value of capacitance to choose the current ripple in the inductor within a fixed value, within a fixed range. We can choose a fixed value of the inductor. So these things are possible only if we choose a constant frequency of operation. So constant frequency of operation is preferred here. Once you have chosen it, the design of the inductors and capacitors are also easy if you have a fixed frequency of operation. Another aspect is extremely important, that is, we will see the conversion ratio. Conversion ratio is defined as output voltage by input voltage. VO by VG is defined as the conversion ratio. Conversion ratio of a converter. So we will see that conversion ratio is a function of D. It's a function of D, which means it is independent of frequency. Okay, so which is very good, very big advantage. That means it doesn't matter at what frequency you are operating the converter, as long as you have the as long as the duty ratio is same, it will have the same conversion formula or conversion formula for that converter. Okay, otherwise, if it is a variable, is a function of the frequency. Otherwise, if it is a function of the frequency, then along with this thing, you have to mention what frequency it is operating, etc. and etc. So that becomes a very cumbersome. Along with the on time, it will also depend upon frequency, and so many other parameters will be coming. So it is better to select the duty ratio as the control variable and operate it in a constant frequency manner. Moreover, in the hardware, it is difficult to generate a wide range of frequency and continuously vary the frequency. That hardware design corresponding to this variation of the frequency, if we choose that mode of control, then that will be rather difficult. So to summarize, we always use a fixed frequency variable on time control, which essentially means a duty ratio control for the power converters. Right. Any question, Amritaksha?
No.
No. Okay. Shoham? Hello, Shoham.
No, sir, it's fine. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir. As of now, it's fine.
Okay. So right. Now, I will show you a power converter and show you how we approach the analysis of the power converter. Okay, power converter analysis has two modes. One is the steady state mode. Another is the transient mode. Steady state mode of analysis and the transient mode analysis. Okay. We are not ignoring. In this course, we are not doing transient mode of analysis. We are not doing transient mode of analysis. That is for advanced course. So in this thing, we will be doing steady state mode of analysis. Okay. So in the steady state mode of analysis, we will be only considering if this is a circuit. If a circuit is like this, then what happens, assuming that it has reached steady state? Okay, how the what is the relation? What are the questions that we'll be asking? What is the output voltage as a function of the input voltage? In other words, what is the conversion ratio? V0 by Vg will be asking. This question will be asking. What is the V0 by Vg of the converter? We will be asking what is the, we will be seeing that any power converter would require passive components, inductors and capacitors, and we will be asking what is the current ripple in the inductor as a ratio, right? Current ripple is delta IL is the current, is the ripple in the inductor current, and IL is the average value of the current. This is capital IL is the average value and delta IL is the ripple value. Pictorially, it looks like this. Suppose the inductor current shape is like this. Inductor current is, suppose it is like this. Okay, this is the, let us say, on time. On time, I can now say, do you know? I can write. How can I write it as on time? Is dTs, and the total time is Ts. The period, and it is repetitive. Why it is repetitive? Why the inductor current will be repetitive? Because under steady state, you know from these signals, the idea that if a system reaches steady state, a periodic input will give a periodic output. What is the periodic input? The periodic input is the duty ratio signal. Duty ratio signal means in a time domain you are turning on the device. This is the duration you have turned on the switch, and this is the duration you have turned off the switch, right? Which as a ratio variable we are defining it as D. Actual signal that you are giving is the switching signal to the MOSFET, to the controlling device, right? While doing analysis, this entire thing we are describing by a variable. That variable is D, which is nothing but a ratio T on by Ts, right? But the actual I cannot give D. I cannot give D. Nobody can give D. One has to give a pulse, switching pulse to the MOSFET to turn on and turn off. That aspect is quantified by a variable D. Okay, based on the physical thing. Physical thing is you are turning on at the beginning of a period, keeping it on for Ts duration, time duration, and then you are turning it off and keeping it off for the rest of the duration, and then subsequently you are turning on with this same thing you are repeating periodically you are doing. That is what is the steady state analysis saying. The steady state analysis, all things, a periodic thing is also continuing with the same periodicity, right? No difference will be, this Ts will not change, T1 will not change. That is what is steady state analysis. Okay, if one needs to change the voltage, if one needs to do anything, then it is coming in the transients thing. That means it is going from one steady state to another steady state, right? So when we are taking steady state, you have to think that everything is frozen now. Frozen in what sense? It is not that every variable current and voltages are not varying, but the variation has a periodicity, right? That is what I am showing is the inductor current. It will qualitatively may look like IL may look like this. This is IL. IL will look like this. This aspect of IL is called delta IL. This is called delta IL. And what is I capital L? That is the average of this current. That is called capital IL. Average. Now you know the shape of this is like a trapezoid. Its average will go through what? Where will the average be located? It is 0 here. Let us say 0 here. Where the average will go? Anybody? Where should I put the average?
At the point where it like first crosses the y-axis.
At the point where it first. This is the current. You know, this is the current. I'll show you. It is shifted. It is not 0. 0 is here. 0 is here. This is shifted.
Yes,
okay.
Sir,
and goes up and goes down. So where is the average of this waveform? Average level will be at what point? I mean, which level? How should I draw that? Can I say that it will be such a point which is at the middle of this, between the middle of this ripple? That means this. That means it is going, this basic pedestal thing is there. This, let's say this is the pedestal. And then this is delta IL. This pedestal plus delta IL by 2. That will be capital IL. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? So that is delta IL. If I do want to do more clearly, you see that if you can do simple geometry also. So I will say that this current is going up and going down, and it is periodic. Right. I want to know what is the average value of this waveform. How do I know? Average value, this is like, let us say I0 and this is I1. So what is the average value of this waveform? Average value, this is the T on and this much is Ts. What is the average value? What is the area of this waveform? The area is I naught plus half of base. Base is how much? Ts. Base is Ts into height. Height I have defined as delta IL. Okay, I naught into Ts plus this Ts into delta IL divided by Ts. That must be the current average IL. So it is where it is coming. It is coming at I naught plus half of delta IL. So therefore I am saying that if I want to indicate it, I will do just go middle point of the ripple. A line I will draw through the middle point of the current ripple. This is the current ripple and this is the thing. So in this analysis of the converters, we would like to know, ask these questions. Because passives we have to choose and design, and passives we need to design based on this criteria. What is the ripple? Because the specification of the converter will tell you that what kind of ripple is allowed in the passives. This specification will be given, and they will give the specification in terms of a ratio, delta IL by IL, a ratio they will give. Obviously, that makes more sense than giving a physical number of delta IL, because it depends upon as a percentage of the average value, how much is the current ripple. Okay, the lower the ripple, the better the converter. Okay, so that is but the size and design will be difficult. Is bigger, size is bigger. So next is very important specification is output voltage specification, that is delta V naught by V naught. This is most critical. You can guess why. Already I have described why it would be so critical. Because that you know that the microprocessor example you take, the voltage is 0.7. So the ripple on that 0.7 is the average value of the voltage. If I plot in time, the voltage is this. It doesn't mean that it is always staying like that. Why it is not staying like that? Because there is a periodic input. There will be fluctuations. Every quantity will be periodic. However big, small, everything is periodic. The currents are periodic, the voltages are periodic, everything is periodic. The system is changing between two states, on state and off state, but doing it so repeatedly and then reaching a steady state. Right? So don't judge it by the variation that would be happening inside this. That variation, the nature of the variation is that whatever may be the variation, I don't know whatever may be the variation. Maybe the variation is like this, but it is periodic. That means this point and this point are equal. This point and this point are equal. Cycle by cycle, it is equal. Now here also, there will be a quantity of delta V naught. That means based on the average pulse aspect, how much it has deviated. And this has to be very stiff, because that is what is expected from the converter to produce a voltage level required for the load, and load doesn't expect too much of variation, right? A small variation it expects. For example, I said that microprocessor expects only plus minus 5% expectation variation, not more than that. The lesser the better, right? So you will also be given a specification, and you have to show that by selection of the components. How the selection of the component? This essentially selects the capacitance. This essentially what is selected is inductor. That is what is selected. So these quantities have to be found out through steady state analysis. That what, given a duty ratio and the TS period, what will be the current ripple, the ratio of the current ripple and the ratio of the. Note that in this analysis, that is why the advantages of choosing a constant switching frequency is this, that in this analysis, none of the things will be a function of the switching frequency. It will be a function of some function of duty ratio. This will be another function of duty ratio. This will be another function of duty ratio because of this this aspect that we are choosing constant. We are not we are not varying the changing the switching period or frequency, switching frequency. Fs is equal to 1 by Ts. Ts is the period. Ts is the time period, right? Does it mean that the converter, it then doesn't matter the converter, the switching frequency doesn't matter? Switching frequency very much matters to satisfy the other aspect of the converter's desirable performance. What is the other aspect I said of the converter's desirable performance?
Size.
Yes, the other aspect is size. To satisfy this size aspect, we need to have a selection of higher and higher switching period, as high as you can go. Size is going down if Fs goes high. We will show that. And also with a little bit of common sense, you can get it. What you will get it is that I'll give you the first an idea what objective is. People will be giving you a specification. I'm just giving you a simple way of looking at it. People will be giving you a specification delta IL by IL. It will be mentioned. Suppose they mentioned it, it is 20% given. Okay. As I said, delta IL, by the time you get the feel that any current related issue is dictated by the choice of inductor. So you have to choose an inductor for the converter. Okay, you have to choose an inductor for the converter, and this choice will choice means what? You have to choose a number. You will find out that to satisfy 20% this thing for a converter with a switching frequency, certain switching frequency Fs, you will require an inductor value L. What you will see that this value of the inductor will be half L by 2 if we choose a switching frequency of 2 Fs. So what is happening is the more we are increasing the switching frequency, the less the size of the inductor will be, and it is true for capacitors also. So for passives, the size will be less because the values are less. It is not the current through the inductor will be less, because current is dictated by the load current. The current through the inductor is dictated by the load demand. That will not change. But what will change is that the number, the value of the inductance that you need to choose in order to satisfy a ratio specification, that is delta IL by IL specification. We will see that it is dependent on this. So one thing you will see that this has a frequency item related to it. This has a frequency item. I am not only duty ratio, but it also has a frequency term related to it. These two, this thing and this thing has frequency as a variable. So therefore, by adjustment of the frequency for a given delta V naught by V naught, you can choose a lower value of, you can choose the value of capacitance. So this I will derive, and then it will be further clear to you. But the direction I am just indicating it now. Right. So I repeat, V naught by Vg is called the conversion ratio. That is a function of duty ratio, not a function of frequency. But delta IL by IL is a function of duty ratio as well as the switching frequency. Similarly, delta V naught by V naught is also a function of duty ratio and the switching frequency. Right. Right. Let's try to see why do we need passive components in a power converter. Let's take a simple example. Let's say I have 10 volt and that is at the input, and I need to convert it to 4 volt. That is what I need to convert it to, and I need to have, I know that this switch is the thing that semiconductor, I need to use semiconductor as a switch. So how do we do it? So your common sense, let us see what common sense, how 10 volt can be equivalent to, can be converted to a 4 volt using a switch only. Can anybody guess? So let me
Sir,
yeah, tell
sir,
me.
like
Yeah,
if we want an average of 4 volt, then by switching the cycle, like by adjusting the duty cycle,
Yes.
depending upon the switch on and off time, we can get an average 4 volt.
Yes, you understand that. That means I will do this. Ideally, I will do this 10 volt for some time. I will put. Okay, that means as if this is the output. I have a switch here. Let us say switch here. I turn on the switch. This is 10 volt. I give turn on the switch T on. Then what? This is the no common point. So output. This is V output. Then V output is how much? 10 volt. This is V in for on duration. For on duration. Yes. Clear? I have turned on and given 10 volt to output. Then what I have done? I have turned it off and not giving anything to the output. Not giving anything to the output, you may interpret that this is open. This switch is now open. You may interpret it that I have turned on another switch here for simplicity, but for unambiguous operation, I have turned on, correspondingly I have turned on the switch. Initially there was a switch, another switch here, which was open, which is open. This, I call it this switch Q and this switch as Q bar. So now Q is off, okay, and Q bar is on. Okay, remaining period of the time. This is the period we call it off period, during DURING, during off period. So this is VG 10 volt. So now what is the output voltage? Can you tell me what is the output voltage now? 0 volt. Clear? Right? Hello, somebody? You understand what I have done? I have two switches, Q and Q bar. I need to produce 4 volt at the output on an average, right? For doing that, what I have done is, I'm not saying finally we will land up into this, but I'm saying just the criteria that I need to produce 4 volt on an average. The criteria is only that. The criteria is not instantaneous level of voltage that is at the output. Criteria is only what is the average value of the output voltage. So I have, during the on time, what I have done is I have turned on the switch Q for certain time. We'll see what time. And for the rest of the time of the period, I have turned off Q and turned on Q bar. So what is the output voltage pattern that you are getting at the output? The output V naught. This is the V naught. What will be 10 volt for some time and 0 volt for rest of the time, right? And this needs to produce average voltage of 4 volt. So average voltage of 4 volt may be here. This is the average. This is V naught instantaneous. I will give time function to it. So this is what is average. Average is 4 volt. So how is it possible to produce to 4 volt? Then 10 into the on time T on plus 0 into T off is equal to 4 into Ts. That is the equation. Average value is this. Average value is 4 volt all the time. All the time is Ts. The total time is Ts all the time. This is T on, right? So I can write from this relationship of averaging. So what we are getting is T on by Ts is equal to how much? 4 by 10 is equal to 0.4. And T on by Ts by definition is the duty ratio. So duty ratio is then 0.4. So this is the way, this is the core way, this is the intrinsic way. What is done to get 4 volt on an average? Don't ask me, sir, how can you call it 4 volt? Instantaneously it goes to 10 volt. Instantaneously it goes to 0 volt. That is, in no time it is having a level of 4 volt. But you are calling it 4 volt. I say that yes, I call it 4 volt from the average point of view. But that is not what will be transmitted to the output. I will not. Nobody will accept this. If the load voltage is varying in such a manner, nobody will accept it. No application will accept it. So I need what? Can you tell me I need what? This is the intrinsic operation that has been done to create the level on an average, but to make it look unchanged 4 volt. So my job is now to have a fluctuating 10 volt, 0 volt level, 0 volt pattern. My job is to convert that pattern to a level of more or less fixed 4 volts. So what I need to do? Can anybody tell?
Filter.
You will use what? Say again. I will use what? Filter, right? I will use some kind of filter. And the filter means inductors and capacitors. Filter can be of first order, filter can be of second order, but better to put a filter of second order because then the fluctuation in the level of voltages will be pretty insignificant. So what will be the following thing? So I have produced a voltage level of this to this. I need to filter. I need to filter means what I should do? What kind of thing I should do? I will put an L and C here and then declare that to be my final output. My initial level is this. Initial, by switching I could have created this fellow. Now you can, one moment clearly you can see that the inductor under short circuit, under steady state is a short circuit. So whatever voltage level, intermediate voltage level, let me call it V switching, Vs, the switched voltage level. The switched voltage level is 10 volt and 0 volt, whose average value with a duty ratio of 0.4 Ts. That is the time duration, duty ratio of 0.4. So what will be the average value of Vs and V0? What will be the average value of V0 with respect to the average value of Vs if under steady state? I am asking what is, I know the Vs average is equal to how much? 4 volt. I am asking what is V0 average?
It will be like Vs equal to Vs average, because at steady state the capacitor will be open. Like
steady state capacitor is open and the inductor is short, right? Capacitor is open and the inductor is short. So therefore this voltage is 4 volt. What is the advantage? Advantage is how much, what will be the pattern of V0? Instantaneous pattern of Vs we have seen. It is stiff, it is discontinuous, it goes 10 volt to 0 volt. So what will be the likely? Consider that V0 is pretty big, sufficiently big. Then what it will happen? What will be the pattern of V0? First approximation of V0, what it will be? It will be stable, more or less 4 all the time, no? Can I say that? It is more or less, because you imagine that I have put a very big fat capacitor. Fat capacitor means its level cannot be changed so quickly, right? And I am saying that this period is rather small. Period is rather small compared to the compared to the relative values of L and C I have chosen, right? I can choose a time period considering 1 by root over of LC, that is the natural frequency. If the natural frequency is much lower than the switching period TS, that means what I am saying is, suppose I assume that 1 by root over of LC is very much lower, is very much greater. This is the period, right? 1 by root over LC, yes. Now 1 by root over LC is the frequency, sorry. So it is frequency is very much lower than Fs. Fs is nothing but 1 by Ts, right? So if I assume that the natural frequency of this filter, this LC filter, one inductor and one capacitor, is natural frequency is quite small than the frequency of the switching signal, which means that the period TS period is very small compared to the way the LC oscillation, its natural frequency of the filter is. Then what is likely to happen? The capacitor voltage is not likely to change during this time much, because it has been averaged. I'm not talking about during transient during it cannot instantaneously go to that level. I agree, but I'm deliberately skipping that part. I'm just trying to say that what will happen under steady state? What has to happen under steady state? Under steady state, everybody has to be periodic. That means the beginning of the period, the value at the beginning of the period has to end with the same value at the end of the period, right? So if that is happening, the capacitor voltage is likely to take what shape? The capacitor voltage is likely to take a shape of, though this voltage is fluctuating like this, this is the voltage of V1, the capacitor voltage is likely to be more or less constant at this. This is what the capacitor voltage is likely to be. I am not denying there may be a small fluctuations, but the fluctuations will be periodic in nature, meaning that this value will be this value. And because the capacitance and filter selection is so high, this delta V naught is very delta V naught by V naught is very less than 1. That is what will be done. So from the perspective of the output, from the perspective of the load, I will say that this is more or less constant. This is more or less constant. This is the thing that we would like to achieve, because output voltage is important. That is the eventual output of the converter. Inductor current, that the other thing, the inductor current is not the real interesting thing here. Inductor current as such is not of that much important, as much important this capacitor voltage is, because this is not seen by the output, by the load. Load is looking at this. Load is looking at this point, and here the load resistance will be connected. Load will be connected. So it is only for load. What matters is this voltage. How this voltage is obtained is the designer's business. However, from the design perspective, we need to know what is the value of inductor I must choose to help the capacitor. You must understand that I cannot directly put the capacitor. Why can't I put directly the capacitor? Can anybody say? Why can't I put a capacitor directly? Why can't I do this sort of circuit? Why can't I do? This is supply. This is a switch. One switch here, another switch here. This switch is Q, this switch is Q bar, and I have put a capacitor.
Sir, because that like when we just suddenly switch on and off the switch,
yes.
then
Yes.
the capacitor has to.
Yes, a lot of problems. First of all, I expect it to be 4 volt. I expect it to be 10 volt, this point. So when you switch on, you are shorting 10 volt and 4 volt. When you, if you turn on Q1, if you turn Q bar, then also you turn on, you short the capacitor directly. So this is not a valid circuit. Okay, two voltage sources cannot be shorted instantaneously. Well, I understand that you have generated an average voltage here, but let the average voltage preserve by doing the similar acceptable circuit modification subsequently, right? You have to make it compatible. You let it survive this averaging voltage that has been internally generated, internally created. Let it be consistent with the subsequent circuit. So don't put the capacitor. You may say that, well, I need only capacitor because I need only output voltage to be stable. I will put bigger and bigger capacitor. The bigger and bigger capacitor put, the more and more current will flow through the capacitor. Spike current, that is 10 volt to 4 volt is short for momentum. C dV by dt is equal to 6 volt, and you see that this dV by dt is becoming infinite because it is happening in no time, because it's switch. There is no other resistance coming in between, and C is more means it is huge amount of dV is 6. C dV by dt is going towards infinity because dV is 6 and dt is tending to 0. 6 and this is tending to 0, and so 0 by 6 this current is tending towards infinity. C dV by dt is tending towards infinity, and more C you put, the more the spike current goes through the device. So this is not a valid circuit. The valid circuit would be to isolate between some kind of isolate. Isolate doesn't mean here mean the galvanic isolation, but node wise isolation, node wide separation, not isolation, maybe separation is a better word. So one switch here, another switch here, Q, this is Q bar. When this is on, this is off, and the separation is created by this inductor. Now this thing can be independent of this instantaneous sense. Instantaneous sense, these two voltages are not equal. This V0 and this V switch, that node we have created, they are not equal now. This voltage pattern is this voltage pattern is almost constant. Very, very insignificant ripple that we can dictate. Now we are free to choose the capacitor to dictate this delta V0 ripple. Understood? Anybody? So that's why the importance of the inductor is coming in. It is separating these two nodes while preserving. What it is preserving? That this voltage average is equal to this voltage average. Preserving Vs average is equal to V0 average. V0 average and V0 is almost same. I will not make too much of distinction here because this ripple, you can say it is almost approaching 0. I have put fat enough a capacitor as much as the load requires. Depending upon load will say that no, I won't tolerate ripple more than 2%. Okay, fine, I will put a much bigger capacitor. But just a capacitor is not important. Is not possible. We must separate this V0 output node and the switching node. The input is this, switch node is this, output is this. So this is what is the passive component. This is what is another passive component. This passive component is required to maintain the output voltage. This passive component is essentially required to separate Vs and V0, these two nodes, so that averaging can work. Your first switching has done the averaging. It is just doing the control, is just intrinsically generating the level that has to be generated at the output. But subsequently, we have to interface with passive components so that instantaneous KCL and KVLs are not violated. This is KCL KVL violation is happening. Two voltage sources you are even momentarily you cannot connect. But now with this modification, we are not violating KCL and KVL. It is a periodic waveform. The capacitor voltage will have small ripple. Inductor current can have a larger ripple. And another aspect of this thing is that this inductor current being, if I put it a continuous current, it is always helping the load supply power to the load. It is taking power from the input side. This is how the load is filling. From the load side, it doesn't see anything VG. It sees only an inductor. It sees only an inductor which is providing it the energy. Under steady state, you may say that the capacitor has is neither charging nor discharging over a period. That is what the steady state operation of a capacitor. It may be charging during on time and discharging during off time, but overall it is neither charging nor discharging over the period, because that is what steady state means. Therefore, what is happening? The load is receiving power in the form of an inductor current, okay, and that is what it is seeing. The load, it is helping the power to, inductor is helping the power to flow to the load, okay, in this. So they can, in a sense, this inductor has separated the input and output. But I can think that this is an input side of thing, this is an output side of thing, and inductor is an interface between the two. It is taking energy from the, when the switch is on, it is accepting energy from VG and storing it inside. When the switch is off, it is delivering energy to the output. When the switch is on, it is accepting the energy as well as some energy it is giving to the load. Because inductor, what is the equivalent circuit? Just quickly see. I will come. I'll quickly show you what is the equivalent circuit here. This is the on-state equivalent circuit. This is pretty much stiff. This is stiff. This voltage is not fluctuating much. This is 10 volt. This is 4 volt. I'm giving some number, and let us say this is 1 ohm. So 4 ampere current. So what is happening here is that this, when the switch is on, this switch is on state. This is the equivalent circuit, and therefore the current will be how much? You know from your steady state analysis, this current 4 ampere means this current on an average will be 4 ampere. Has to be, right? Because capacitor current on an average is 0. That is 0. That is not there. Instantaneous is there, but for the time being, you ignore the instantaneous part. So this current is 4 ampere. This current is, label is 4 ampere. The average value is 4 ampere. So this 4 ampere current is now drawn from the supply. So supply instantaneously is giving how much power? 40 watt. 40 watt power is drawn from the supply. And how much power is given to the output? Output is going 16 watt, 4 volt and 4 ampere, 16 watt. So remaining energy is now at that time is stored in the inductor. So inductor is storing plus delivering. Okay, but it stores more than what it delivers, as is happening, 40 watt, 16 watt. But when you turn off, then what is happening? This, right? So inductor is now not receiving any energy from the energy power from this, but it is delivering power to the load. So the remaining thing, that 16 watt, that remaining whatever it had stored, extra has been stored, that it is delivering to the load. Load is taking 16 watt now, and it is now giving 16 watt. The balance, how is it happening? By the 40 watt into that time and this into that time. If you do, then the balance will be coming here. Energy balance will be coming over. So it is storing and delivering, and here it is only delivering. Right? So so I do you have a can I get half an hour tomorrow after the class, because I have a very urgent meeting. I want to complete the I want to end the class now. So can I have a little bit time after the class tomorrow? And half an hour, approximately 20-25 minutes. Hello?
Sir, actually tomorrow, immediately after your class, there is one more class.
Oh, okay. Then I will not insist, and it's okay for me. So I will start from here in the next class. I have an urgent meeting. I have to leave. So let me stop here, and any questions you have in next class, you ask. That is the stop recording.